Welcome back, everyone. It's Grandmaster Max Illingworth, and this is the second part of my analysis for the MVL versus Mamedyarov game. So in the first part, I focused more on the opening, the early middle game, and some of the strategic concepts, in hope that some of these ideas would be useful even for quite strong players watching the video. And this next part is also aimed maybe a bit higher level than some of my previous videos. So I really hope you'll find it useful and you'll get a lot out of the many puzzles I'll set here. In fact, in the last video, I asked the question, well, what would you think of Black's move e takes t4? And I would say that it's probably a bit of a strategic concession here. And I think that after e takes d4, so I'll answer the second part of the question, how should White take back on d4? So in the game, White played knight takes d4, and while that worked out quite well for him, I feel like it allows Black's pieces some freedom. Like if Black had put the knights on f6 and g6, then Black wouldn't have any real weaknesses, and by perhaps playing for a d5 break, I think he would be able to, if not equalize, to at least have a robust position. So that's why I think that in this position, the move c takes d4 would have been a bit more effective. And perhaps one thing that White might have been afraid of is that perhaps the knight could come towards the b4 outpost in the future. But I don't really see this as a problem because, well, if knight c6, we can also kick the knight away with d5 and use the pin on the pawn. And maybe a knight could also come to d5 to cover that b4 square. So I think that in this position, cd4 was the best move. And if Black plays, say, a move like c6, for example, well, then we can just build up the pressure with moves like rook a d1. And perhaps again play knight d2 and start to get the pawns moving to grab even more space in the center. So that would be my suggestion for White. Although, to be fair, cd4 maybe is not so much better than knight d4 than I initially thought. But I still like the idea of keeping the pawns side by side in the center so the structure can be as flexible as possible. Well, in terms of what Black should do instead of e takes d4, my suggestion would be to play knight g6. And I mean, I understand that Black's general plan was to avoid playing this move, but I do feel like it might be the best choice, even maybe White is still a little bit better with, say, rook a d1 and all the plan came to be playing moves like knight f5, g3, maybe push the h pawn and just kind of gradually squeeze Black out of space is kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. Maybe at the right moment, even d5 may not be entirely silly either, if Black were to misplace his knights. So, also a move like queen c6 maybe could also be considered. It does allow d5 with tempo, but the argument would be that maybe we want to see d5 anyway, kind of saying that White may have a bit of a hard time getting through on the queen side in this structure, whereas Black might gradually prepare an f5 break, or even a c6 push for potential counterplay. So after e takes d4, knight takes d4, Black played c6, and I think this is where the game starts to turn against Black, where I'm guessing he was probably afraid of a move like knight to b5 here. But I don't think it's objectively that scary. And if White does play knight b5 in this position, we can defend it in different ways. For example, even rook to c8 or maybe queen to c6 is more harmonious. I think it's all about bringing either knight g6 or maybe a knight to c5. I think Black will have quite reasonable play, where it's not that easy for White to find a good pawn break to make use of his central space. So I suppose Black would have a playable game here. Rook after c6. So I'll ask the question, what is sort of the weakness in Black's position? And as you've probably noted now, the d6 pawn is undefended. So that explains MVL's strategy of playing knight df5 and just pressuring this pawn. Black started with knight f6. In retrospect, maybe knight c5 is a better try, at least to try and attack the a pawn as well as the e pawn. But we had knight f6, and I guess the problem for Black is that after rook a d1, it's just very hard for Black to free himself, where if he plays a move like d5, which might have been the initial idea, then White can just push e5 and sort of bring the knight in, and there are all sorts of problems for Black. So if knight takes f5 and knight f5, The move that black would like to play is knight to e4. The problem is that you can just kick the knight away of f3 and the knight will come in, and the extra space on the king side will give white a very good chance of a successful attack on the black king, where we might note that as the minor pieces are traded and the major pieces stay on the board, that the king's safety and piece activity does become an increasingly important factor. If you play knight takes f5, it's kind of a similar story where, you would like to play a move like rook e6 and defend the d6 pawn, but that runs into a tactic which you might like to pause the video if you haven't seen it yet. It turns out that e5 is just really strong, using the pin on the rook to good effect. So after rook a1, black played knight to c8, and white played this safe move of f3, just defending this pawn. Maybe it's not absolutely the strongest, but it's a pretty good move to keep the advantage. And maybe black should have thought about trying to bring the queen back into the game, though it's true that with the knight on almost effectively an outpost, because in fact it can't be kicked away easily, it does mean that white would nonetheless have a much better position. So after d5, I think this position makes a really great puzzle, and it's why I split this game into 2 videos, because I want to give you a lot of opportunities to play like a super grandmaster in this game, or in 1 or 2 cases maybe even better than a super grandmaster. So what would be your move for white in this position? It's true that black's threat is to take the e-pawn, but to offer a little hint here, is there a way we can make a stronger threat in reply? So you can pause the video if you need time to think about it. Okay, congratulations if you found the move Vachier-Lagrave played. He played the move queen f2 with the idea of playing queen to g3 and hitting that pawn on g7. It's a very typical idea, and we'll be able to see in the game just how powerful that queen and knight combination are. And if black were to take on e4, then we would have queen g3 and black's days would be numbered, because if knight h5, well, we can still play knight takes h6 anyway, using the pin just to show how that works after knight h6. And king h7, we can play a counter-attack, queen g5. And the problem black has is that his king is just way too exposed here. After say g takes h6 and queen h5. There's simply no good defense to the many threats that white has. Again, you can see how powerful the knight and queen are as an attacking duo, especially when the black king has no real defenders. So black defended a little more tenaciously than this. He played rook e6. And it's one thing I sort of noticed quite a lot is that players, when they're in a winning position, might start to back down and start to play a bit passively, trying to keep their advantage. But particularly here with a dynamic advantage, it's very important to continue to play with gusto, to play with threats. And that's why queen g3 is so strong, just attacking this pawn. And from here, black's position simply collapses after knight to e8. If g6 still, you can take the pawn on h6. So that's not really a defense either. So knight e8, e takes d5, and from here you could say the rest was a matter of technique, where as long as white keeps the initiative and keeps attacking the black king and making threats, black won't really be able to catch a breather here. So after king f8, white found a really nice move here. He played queen h4. You can see, as we've seen in some other positions already, how the undefended pieces are often kind of linked to a tactical blow, such as queen h4 here. So after rook d7, white just played very safely, knight d to e3. This true, the knight was on a very good position on d5, so maybe I would have started with king h1 and kind of kept the tension and maybe delayed knight e5 even for a later move. But objectively, there's nothing really wrong with knight d3 either, where it follows the principle of exchanging the pieces when you're up material. And if it's after takes, if black were to play queen to b6, then okay, what's a good defense in this position for white? Well done. You can play queen f2 and keep both the knight and the pawn well protected. And if black plays g6, then you have knight d4 to again make sure that the knight is safe and that white will have a winning position. Actually, it's a funny situation where wherever the rook moves, it's going to run into a knight fork on the next turn. So an almost study-like combo there. So the game concluded with knight c d6, knight d4, rook e5, knight g4, so I just bring more pieces in the attack. And probably black should retreat the rook, but I think he would still be losing anyway. But after rook d5, white just played move knight to e5. And black resigned here because there's just no good way to save his rook. If he tries rook e7, then we've got a nice knight g6 discovered attack. And if rook c7, then okay, white has a few ways to win, but the most clinical is to play queen d8. There's just no good way to do it, to deal with the slew of threats against the black king. If say queen, say if they play king g8, for example, I mean you can even just move the knight, and black just doesn't have a great defense to rook e8. I can't just showing one sort of beautiful X-ray point. If rook c8, that we can still take the knight with rook e8 and use the pins to our advantage. So that was, yeah, a really nice game between Vachier-Lagrave against Mamedyarov. I hope you really enjoyed it, and you learned a few things from the puzzles. I mean, that's really one of the best ways to improve at chess, actually, is to solve puzzles. And I know it's been a bit of a long video, but I might just talk quick about who I think is the favourite in the sort of rapid and blitz tiebreaker that the players will now go to. I would say that Mamedyarov's assessment that MVL's a slight favourite is probably correct, just because MVL is currently the highest rated blitz player on the FIDE blitz ratings. And I'd also say that in terms of the match, one thing to keep in mind is that when you're sort of playing like these high stakes matches, it sort of means it's, I'd say, more psychological factors like who can sort of keep their cool and under pressure will sort of be the deciding factor in some ways, much as the the chess skill of the players. So that's all I'd say. Probably in rapid, it's very close to a 50-50, where I think Mamedyarov, having a much more broad repertoire than MVL, could have more potential maybe to steer the game into positions that MVL may not be as comfortable in. On the other, I think when it gets to blitz, it will be very much MVL who will be a favourite. But yeah, anything can happen in these matches, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for making all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.